wisdom,
Prudentia,
justice,
Justitia,
temperance,
Temperantia,
courage.
Fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
Welcome to the Sunday Stoic Podcast. This is Steve coming to you from Central Ohio, and I'm joined today by Dan.
Hello, everybody. I come from Queens, New York City.
And this is the Sunday Stoic Podcast, where we apply ancient philosophy to modern life. And if you've been listening to the last few episodes, you know we have been talking about the 4 Cardinal Virtues. And this week, we are going to talk about wisdom.
Practical wisdom. Wisdom by itself is usually a reference to all 4 of the cardinal virtues collectively, otherwise known as arete or virtue.
So there's this idea that all the virtues are forms of wisdom. So applying wisdom to how you deal with others would be a form of justice, for example. And today we're talking about practical wisdom. And so what is practical wisdom? Well, I'm going to give you a short reading here from Diogenes Laertius from the Lives of the Eminent Philosophers, Book 7. And he says, "Amongst the virtues, some are primary, some are subordinate to these. The following are the primary: wisdom, courage, justice, temperance. Particular virtues are magnanimity, continence, endurance, presence of mind, good counsel. And wisdom they define as the knowledge of things good and evil, and of what is neither good nor evil." And we'll find that that is a topic that Epictetus covers quite a bit, kind of reminding us from the Stoic point of view, what is it that is good? What is it that is evil? And then you'll hear many times Marcus ruminating over the same kinds of ideas. Dan, would you like to tell us what Epictetus says about what is good and what is evil?
We ought to train ourselves day by day to deal with impressions, for these too propound questions to us. The son of so-and-so is dead. That is beyond the will and not an evil. So-and-so's father has disinherited him. What do you think? It is outside the will and not an evil. Caesar has condemned him. That is outside the will and not an evil. Something has made him grieve. That is an act of will and evil. He has endured nobly. That is an act of will and good. If we acquire this habit, we shall make progress, for we shall never assent to anything but that of which we get a convincing impression. Epictetus, Discourses, Book 3.8.
So Epictetus wants us to think about our impressions. And remember, impressions are like the idea of a stamp going into wax, making an impression on our mind. So our minds, from the Stoic point of view, the sensory input and ideas we think about can make an imprint on us. And we have to assent to that impression if it's really going to take hold. And we can think about them. We can reject those impressions or we can accept them. So when we get this idea, ooh, this happened, someone just cut me off in traffic, is this good, bad, or an indifferent kind of a thing? And we can think about our values, apply the correct viewpoint, and then move on.
According to Epictetus, if it's something that's outside the will, it relates to something external and is therefore indifferent to us. And if it's something that has to do with your own value judgments and your own opinions and your own voluntary acts, then it does pertain to your moral good or your moral corruption. Your focus is upon what's up to you.
Right. And so that's why this is essentially, like Dan said, practical wisdom, where we're putting it into practice, and it's not just something you sit around and think about. It's something that you're obviously day to day using and taking action on. It can be almost trivial thing, or maybe it's not so trivial, but what are you going to buy at the grocery store today? What's the wisest choice? And if you listen to someone like Kai Whiting, you'll hear him talk about making decisions based on like don't buy tuna because so many dolphins die in this process, so on and so forth. It can take many forms, this idea of applying practical knowledge to daily life.
And prudence is closely related to the discipline of assent. You may remember that from previous episodes that the discipline of desire and aversion is closely related to temperance, and the discipline of action is associated with justice. But the discipline of assent is attributed to prudence or practical wisdom. Pierre Hadot describes the discipline of assent as distinguishing the true from the false. And I am summarizing his opinions here because it's not public domain, so I am paraphrasing, I'm not quoting. Pierre Hadot also says that the discipline of assent is a sustained effort to eliminate value judgments that we hold toward external events and circumstances. Our true concern is only for things that are related to moral value or what is up to us.
So we're using wisdom to pay attention to what is important, what is good, what is evil, and try to make correct judgments about things. And that's where this comes into play. And I'll give you a quick one here about at least how not to build wisdom according to Epictetus. This comes from a text called the Golden Sayings of Epictetus, which I believe is derived from the Discourses. When a youth was giving himself airs in the theatre, saying, "I am wise, for I have conversed with many wise men," Epictetus replied, "I too have conversed with many rich men, yet I am not rich." So we have to remember that it's not about what you hear on a podcast or what you read or what you talk about with someone. It's putting it into action.
And what you could actually understand and incorporate into your operating system, if you will.
Right. Making it part of you and part of your daily routine to question impressions, to assent to some that appear to be worthy of assent, and rejecting those and say, "You are nothing to me," to those that are not worthy of assent. What do any other Stoics have to say about wisdom?
If anything external vexes you, take notice that it is not the thing which disturbs you, but your notion about it, which notion you may dismiss at once if you please. But if the condition of your mind displeases you, who should hinder you from rectifying your opinion? Marcus Aurelius, Meditations, Book 8.47.
He's saying, check yourself before you wreck yourself.
He is indeed. And you can see that this is yet another passage where you can detect that Marcus Aurelius is a intellectual descendant from Epictetus.
Or a fanboy, as some might say.
In the colloquial, yes.
In the colloquial, yes. In the colloquial English.
The vernacular.
Yes, the vernacular. Yeah, so once again, check your impressions, and it's up to you. Your mind is your business and your duty to work on. Can't expect anyone else to do it, even though they might try. They will not succeed.
And there are a lot of things that basic Stoic concepts that relate to developing and cultivating our wisdom and our prudence. And that is things like the virtue is the only good, withholding assent to impressions, which you find in Epictetus and Enchiridion 1. And also physical definition or decomposition helps us a lot as well, because that teaches you to strip down your sense impressions and take away the value judgments that we add on top of them. X is occurring and that is a terrible thing, or Y is occurring and that is a wonderful thing. Instead, you try to strip it down and say X is occurring and Y is occurring, and you just try to leave those extra value judgments that we add out.
I would say even the reserve clause is a form of applied wisdom, right? Like, I'll be there, assuming my car starts, etc. Like saying my will is aligned with attempting to do this, but reality may step in, and that way you are thinking about things wisely, not in a pessimistic way, but in a realistic way. I'll, as they say, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, so we'll see you tomorrow. That sort of a thing. It's fate permitting, and yeah. Exactly.
And it's hard to do sometimes because when we observe something in our environment, we frequently automatically and instinctually judge them to be good or bad. And the addition of these value judgments distort our perceptions, and they can make it difficult to perform appropriate acts.
And we do it without even thinking, which is why, writing about it, thinking about it, meditating can help to put a little bit of space between the what seems like a cause and effect relationship. This happened, therefore I'm mad, and you can start to drive a wedge between that and add a little processing time before the emotions kick in. And we know once the emotions kick in, even the Stoics say it's often too late at that point.
Right, especially with anger, because anger takes on a life of its own and carries you along, and you can do all sorts of dastardly things while you are under the influence of anger.
Temporary insanity, as the Stoics
Seneca.
might say. Yeah. Mhm.
Especially Seneca, but yes.
Especially Seneca. Yeah.
I think he was especially cognizant of it, I think, because of his long-term exposure to Nero. And I think he observed the negative aspects of anger so much that that's why he was so fascinated by it and trying to figure out how to deal with it.
I would imagine being around someone with unlimited power and also almost unlimited anger would really make an impression on you.
And a complete lack of empathy or moral compass. Yes.
Right.
It would be very difficult to deal with.
Absolutely. So I think that's why Seneca has whole texts on anger and things of that nature, and he reflected on them quite a bit, and even offered some of his writings to his pupil or former pupil in an attempt to make him think about things and change his ways.
Did not take.
It did not take. Yeah. No. Sadly, it'd be cool if we could be like, so then Seneca wrote this letter to Nero and he totally changed. It became the like Ebenezer Scrooge on Christmas morning, and it was just great and dandy after that. But that's not quite how it worked out.
Yeah, giving a psychopath complete and total power is not a wise thing to do.
Typically not. So there, we're back to wisdom again. So practical wisdom is taking this idea of using your power of reason, which is what makes you is the most human thing you have, according to the Stoics. This ability to reason, and of course that unites us with all the rest of humanity and with Zeus, as the Stoics would say.
Yeah, it's half of living according to nature, because we're called to live as rational and social animals.
Exactly, and so we want to
Wisdom is the
cultivate.
rational portion.
Yeah, we want to cultivate this virtue because it is one of the things that's really ours and really unique, as far as we can tell, to humanity.
Our defining characteristic, that and our sociability. They're starting to think that other species may be more intelligent than we previously gave them credit for.
Sure.
But for now, we don't have any evidence that they think about things like justice and beauty, virtue,
and temperance and whatnot.
Right. I don't think they're philosophizing crows or octopus. Maybe the dolphins are. But until we can talk with them, we won't know.
Yeah, we have a bit of a language barrier. Yeah, but we're trying to cultivate this thing that at least appears to be the most human thing that we have. That and animals can be social. Animals can have forms of intelligence, but we can collaborate in amazing ways as a species when we choose to, and help each other out and do beautiful things with and for each other.
And as far as we know, I think we're the only species that can think about thinking.
Yeah, I mean, Epictetus goes on about that, about how reason is the only faculty that can think about itself, essentially.
Examine itself, yeah.
Yeah. So we want to cultivate this and use it on a daily basis, which what makes it practical, to allow ourselves to live lives of equanimity and magnanimity and all those great sub virtues, as Diogenes briefly mentioned, only are possible if we live according to reason, according to nature, as well as being social, just, and temperate, courageous individuals. Dan, do you have anything else you'd like to add this week?
In addition to our philosophical studies, sometimes in order to act appropriately in the world, it's important to actually understand the world. And that's tied in with this virtue. So when you have time, also be studying logic and science and psychology, math, critical thinking, logical fallacies, cognitive biases, things like that. Do you think I'm off base with that?
No, no, not at all. I mean, sometimes you read some of the Stoics like Epictetus, and it sounds like they are don't read too much and that sort of thing. But we don't want to. They're talking about studying for the sake of studying, essentially. But if you're trying to build your knowledge of how reality works, so that you can better navigate that reality, that's very important. And so many people don't engage in those forms of study. And if you learn about logical fallacies, then watch a debate or listen to a commercial or whatever, you can
It can be fascinating.
it sure can, like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, the better you get to know them, the more you start seeing them everywhere you look.
Yeah, absolutely. Just start with like the straw man fallacy. Look that up. Maybe we should do an episode
That's a
on
great one.
a few someday. But straw man comes up a lot in politics and other places, so it's a good one to start with, I think. But you got to start somewhere. So perhaps we can talk in the future about what we can do. Discussion of logic and some of those logical fallacies. And there are some great books out there on critical thinking and introductions to critical thinking as well, which are pretty powerful and quite readable, actually. Like there's one I like called I might get it slightly wrong, but it's something like How to Think About Weird Things, and it focuses on UFOs and stuff like that, just like why some people fully commit to believing in them, and why and how you might approach it more from a scientific perspective and that sort of thing. It's pretty interesting read. But that's all I have this week. I'm going to let Dan lead the sign off, see if he has anything else to add all the way out there in New York. You guys stay safe out there, and email the show if you want to hear anything in particular, any topics you'd like to have covered. SundayStoic@gmail.com. Dan?
Seize the day.
Carpe diem.